Good morning. It's great to see y'all this nice, beautiful fall day. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited to be here. This is part 3 of our Lunch and Learn series on marketing, the business impact of marketing. And we are pleased to also have our sponsor of all of our webinar series this fall, Proven Winners. And I'm going to play a short video from them. And then also at the end of the webinar, there's a longer video from Proven Winners that has some great educational information. So without further ado, I want to introduce Darren Rand and Trip Job of Rand Inc. Several of you were on our previous webinars, and you don't have to have seen the first two to be able to get something out of this third webinar. Just a reminder that both of those webinars are on our website at urbanagcouncil.com, so you can view those later.
Welcome. It's good to see some familiar faces from the first couple of webinars, as well as some new faces. So we definitely, as Mary Kay said, want to make this interactive, and we'll open it up for things that you're looking to find out more about. But the general topic this time was common marketing traps. So things that we've seen over the years, Darren and I've seen. And we want to make sure we give you some ideas and thoughts about what, hopefully what not to do, and then, areas that you can focus on. So being November, we're going to hit, kind of start it off with the discussion on marketing roadmaps. And that's, you'll hear us talk about a roadmap versus a calendar. And we just published an article yesterday about this topic, and we just think it's a perfect time of year to talk about that. And then make sure that, we kind of finish it up with, looking at your goals and what you're trying to get across for 2021, and give you some ideas of some marketing trends that are occurring out there that we see and other experts are seeing for next year. So with that, and I know Jesse's got questions or ideas around social media since he's out there. Let's open up real quick. We want to make sure this one is very interactive. Are there other topics that any of you have right now, and that we can make sure we get addressed during the next 40 to 45 minutes? And if not, as we go along, please throw them out there. So we'll definitely, Jesse, talk about social media and a few other things with that. So marketing roadmaps, and we kind of talk about this as your success or your path to success in 2021. And we use the term roadmap versus calendar for a very important reason. If you think about a calendar, your calendar out there is when you need to get something done. A lot of times it's checking the boxes. It's all right, I need to do this by a certain time of year. It might be for those of you who are in like we saw the beautiful roses. All right, calendar might be, I've got to fertilize at this time. I've got to prune at this time. Those are just to-dos, right? What are you trying to accomplish? If you think of a roadmap and you're going somewhere, or if you're a landscape designer and you want to, for a client, create this ultimate year-round, oasis of plants and flowers and all that, you create a roadmap for them. All right, that's you look at where you're going, what your goal is, what you want to accomplish, and that's a roadmap. That's not a calendar. So this is an example that we had done a couple years ago when I was at Oldcastle, and it really, set aside our goal of what we were trying to accomplish for the full year, and then it did put it in buckets. But it talked about the areas that we were going to focus on. Some of them were advertising and marketing related. Some of them were education and content related. but it brought the entire view of the business in a roadmap. So as you think about ways to develop a roadmap, there's 4 key areas that we really try to focus on. And number 1 is your strategy. All right. So unless you're bringing it back to your strategy, again, you're just looking at a calendar, right? What are you trying to accomplish next year? That ought to be the first thing you set as your priority right now. Where do you want to be at the end of the year? Maybe it's certain sales growth. Maybe it's a certain number of new customers for Jesse, and maybe it's he's got a certain level of followers that he's got engagement in social, which then leads to new customers and things like that. Second is prioritization. I think this is really important, and we'll talk about it in some of the kind of the marketing mistakes that are out there. Some people will just say, all right, I've got 5 things to do next year, and I'll just do them evenly. Reality is, there are 2 or 3 areas, whether it's your products, your services, or key customers, and those are the ones that are going to drive your business. And so those are the ones you want to set up first. Before you start getting your roadmap filled out, you've got to be thinking of the ones that are going to drive your business, or maybe your new products that you really have to get out and get established. With that, you go into planning, and you can take that prioritization and put that planning and look at big events. If you're involved in some of the spring home shows, or you're involved in certain urban ag council events, you want to get those loaded in, and then think about, all right, do I need to start teasing a month in advance of this event? Do I need to build up and send out emails a couple weeks in advance to make sure that attendees know we're going to be there? Those are the type of things you want to get in. Third, and then lastly, once that's all there, then you can set the cadence of the rest of your priorities and fill in those gaps. So again, we go into a lot greater detail in the newsletter we just put out. We could probably do an entire webinar just on this idea of marketing roadmaps. But with that, I'll show you one bonus trap, and this is what we see a lot of times. It's this time of year, and businesses say, all right, I'm going to get going. I'm going to develop that calendar. And in January, if you're an outdoor business, which I know many of you are, you're like, all right, timing's perfect. I get that new email out. I get that social strategy going. February, I come back and I do another email, and I'm starting to post, once a week or maybe once a day, as Jesse's getting up to. And then March hits, and your business starts to pick up, and you don't have time to do a campaign, and all of a sudden you don't post as often in whatever social segment is. And then April, maybe you get something out, but you're slowing down in social, and then the busy season hits and nothing happens for 2 and 3 months. Well, before you know it, it's October and it's been 6 months. All right. And so that's the idea of what happens a lot of times when people think about a calendar versus a roadmap, and developing that strategy and moving forward with a plan of how it's going to grow your business and how it's going to tie in. And then you get committed to it and you build it out, whether you're doing it, whether you have someone else doing it, but it becomes a living, breathing part of your business versus just a calendar, because we all know we can push calendar events off, right? The key things for your business, the strategies are the ones you want to act on. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Darren, and Darren's going to take you through some of the top marketing traps to avoid.
Thanks, Trip. All right, let's start with one of the first ones I know we all like to talk about, which is digital and keywords. I mentioned this the first time earlier. There are certain companies that are making money for sure when it comes to this, and it's not all of us. It's the Googles and the publishers of the world. Whether it's mid-market companies or large companies, the challenge with keywords is that most people are buying big, broad terms. There's a difference. Some of you may know the difference with long tail versus broad terms. So landscaping, broad term, versus a specific part of landscape. And so there are way too many algorithms to explain. But at the end of the day, the way it works fundamentally is that it's supposed to look at the keyword ad that you're serving and how it matches with the content of your website and other legitimate places in which we are as a brand placing our content. Theoretically, that's the way it's supposed to work. In the old day, and it's doing better. Again, everyone knows in the first meeting, I have a love-hate relationship with this stuff. It doesn't mean this stuff, SEM, search engine marketing, and specifically PPC, are not a necessary part of what we do as companies. It's just not the panacea that they want to make it out to be. So let's go on to the next one, Trev. And what happens is people will do and they'll try marketing channels. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to try an email, as Tripp just said, because I'm going to buy this list from somebody. It's not curated. It's not double opt-in. It may or may not be exactly the same target, but it's something I want to try. It's 5,000 people. I'm going to try a billboard. I'm going to put it on Peachtree Industrial, or I'm going to put it in Buckhead and see what happens. I'm going to try terrestrial radio, or maybe I'm going to try Pandora. And you notice the word I'm using over and over again is I'm going to try. And the problem with that, again, is that trying, just like Tripp was talking about earlier, is not a plan. Hope is not a strategy. I mean, these are all, idioms that actually work really well in marketing. It's just not a strategy. So what happens is that because of that try mentality, people don't look at what is the reality of what can be achieved. And so the people out there, whether it be an email or a billboard or an event or whatever, their job is to sell you all something. Full stop. Nothing wrong with it. The problem is that is a single tactic in a vacuum. And if they're not put together in a way that Tripp just talked about with a roadmap, then instead of it being a concerted effort, it becomes a very choppy effort that ends up not delivering much at all. Let's go on to the next one, Tripp. So Tripp mentioned this earlier, and I like to say it in real simple terms, which is not normal for me, but planning is not budgeting. And again, whether it's a big company or small company, what most people do is look at their budget for marketing and say, okay, now let's go input what we're going to do. As Tripp's got here, websites, trade shows, social, etc. And these are all things that we want to do. The reality is if you don't have the budget to do them all well, cut down the list. And it's do fewer things better, consistently. And Jesse, to the point of, again, I'm a big Gary Vee fan, but this is where I would disagree with him. If you don't have the time to get out good content all the time, don't do it. Better to say, I'm going to get it out twice a week because I can, and it's good stuff, than to sit there and beat yourself up going, I got to get something out every day. Unless you've got somebody in your team or a marketing, resource or something like that is pushing that stuff out every day. Social is this ongoing newsletter in a sense. The other thing is there are benchmarks. Let's just use that since you talked about that, Jesse. There are benchmarks that you could use to look and see how your social is doing. A benchmark that is out there, 1% compounded month over month growth would be a number. So if you've got 1,000 people following, right, you want 10 a month. I mean, that's organic. So there's earned media versus paid. And it's a combination of the two. So again, love Gary Vee, big fan, but I don't agree because I think he's speaking to big organizations who are who have the firepower to put that kind of volume out there.
I think that you can separate yourself though, because there's a lot of brands right now that are creating their brand through a story of just everyday content. And I think if you're wanting to separate yourself to say landscape, and I was just mentioned Imagine Landscape Company. It's a man, he runs a good company, but he also does mastermind groups. And you pay to get into his, I'm not in his group, but I like to follow social media because I'm from the tech generation I'm in. I can watch and learn so much by just following brands and saying, oh, they do this, or oh, they're doing this, or oh, this is why he's doing this. And I really think that it's so important to put out a lot. I don't think we believe in ourselves enough. I think we get shy.
Your key word you said right there, Jesse, was this, and this is where you can put out story. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but one of the people I've worked with was Columbia University sports marketing, and she did her MBA and then her PhD in marketing. And the best example, because she was a huge Peyton Manning fan, and again, back to your point of story. When Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl that year with the Denver Broncos, and I busted her chops constantly because it was just fun. That was a story that had a through line that from the time they started the beginning of the year till he won the Super Bowl, that had its own life, right? And so now that is, I don't know if that's what he's saying. I don't watch him all the time, but therein is a good example, right? But you got to get somebody hooked, right? That's where there's a debate. Do you just put out stuff, or do you put out good stuff?
Exactly. And Darren, I'll jump into what Jesse was saying, and it is good content, and there's a lot of discussion about what's in it for your audience. Exactly. As long as you make it for your audience and not you. And one of the things that is this group can do together is it doesn't always have to be yours. It can be shared. If you watch some of our feeds, we're passing on articles from other marketers and other management thought leaders at times, and we might add our impression on it because look, we don't have the bandwidth to always create that content. And if you think Jesse, Jim Lanier at Aquascape puts out a monthly or every other month blog, an email, you might see something there and you might repost it and share it one month with your ideas, and then vice versa. And all of a sudden this group can help build, and you are building strong content, strong knowledge, and it's important for your customer base, even if it's not all yours, but with your community, you use that to build that awareness.
Okay. And I was just thinking, because it's where eyes are at, and with cable TV dying and phones becoming what they are, they're RRTV, you can become a channel for someone that over time, it's all about planting that seed now. Even if my content's not what it should be every day, you're talking about good content, it's something that people's going to go back and relate to, because some of it's just as raw and just as messy as what the average media guy or social media users are going to put out. Because yes, I want that Gary Vee content, those clicks, those amazing videos, but to get there and to realize what it takes to put out good content, it's mind-blowing because it's constant moving people. There's groups of 10 people making one video every 30 minutes.
And
it's crazy.
Let me just speak to that real quickly. And again, so what Tripp and I have always done, and this has been the passion that I've had, is that most of the talking heads are talking to big talking heads. It's just it. I mean, mid-market, what he's saying is accurate, but and it's not new. I don't know if you're the youth. It's cool. But BMW used to put out a call it chapter ad campaign that they would hook you, and then they would want you to go in and get more of it, right? And then they would load it into social, they'd load it, right? But here's BMW, they probably spent $2-3 million just on that. And so that daily post, they already had it in the can. They had 30 days of a chapter. They went, boom, loaded it into HubSpot, and it's out the door, right? So that's where, even going back to the earlier slide that Tripp had with the keywords, is what I never want to see is people get frustrated, and they do. Even big companies get frustrated. Mid-market companies get frustrated because of what all the talking heads say that we should be doing. It's nice, but we don't have the bandwidth. I mean, we're working with an early stage company right now. It's venture backed and healthcare, and there are lots of things they'd like to do. But that's where I say, again, instead of getting frustrated, what I would, again, third time, love Gary Vee, I mean, I watch Gartner, I read Harvard Business Review, I read all these things. Those are my inspirations. Personally, those are mine. I've done this for 30 years. But the reality of it is they are thinking and operating within a paradigm that is very different than most of us that are in mid-market. So that's, again, different opinion.
I see the importance of this side of marketing too. The last couple of weeks ago, when we had the part 2 of this meeting, he was explaining just how important the little things are. And he was going over, just making me realize that, yeah, you can go crazy with all this social media stuff, but if there's no numbers and there's no obviously roadmaps and there's obviously no direction, that's kind of where, I've kind of just grew up in the tech world where it's just kind of, we kind of just do, it's just not structured as much as where you're coming from, where you have a more structured type of look at marketing. And I have it as like this where what phones have kind of created. So,
and that's just the misnomer. You're not doing anything any differently. And selfishly, that's why people like Tripp and I have, and Mary Kay and the world of us that are marketers have jobs, is because, it's like saying, hey, go play golf, or my wife's a big green thumb. Go, it sounds good on paper, but the reality of what it takes to do something, whatever it may be, is usually a lot more difficult than people make it out to seem. And so this was a mistake that I made it was a great client, still a client, but we were trying to change something too fast. Big client, and trying to boil the ocean, as people say, right? And it was because the idea, still client, but it was a really big shift we were trying to make. And the reality was, instead of setting milestones that were achievable, we were setting these big, hairy, audacious goals, and nobody felt like we were moving the needle at all. And so we had to take a step back and go, okay, let's do one little piece at a time. And that goes back to the roadmap conversation where Tripp started the day.
Yep.
Hey,
that's why I'm here.
So before we move on real quick, I do want to acknowledge Christian and Catherine both asked kind of about virtual trade shows. Let us get through these marketing traps, and then we will address that. I've got a few thoughts, and let Darren think about it as well. But I did see both your notes, and those are really important for next year. So we will come back to that in about 10 minutes.
Let's go ahead and go on, because I think we spent some good time there, and let's stay, because I've got some notes on virtual trade shows. This is just a real funny example Tripp and I talk about, because one of his good friends is in this business. This is an example of Try. Right here in Brookhaven, and I looked up, I was walking my dog, and I went, wow, that's a really interesting sign. And I looked, I went, I have no idea what it's from. So this is probably in a 60-second rotator. And the point is, somebody sold this to somebody. And we will, to the two of you who asked about virtual, there are benchmarks. There are ways to understand what's working and not working. And in this case, now they've changed the sign immensely. Because, I don't know, maybe Tripp got to them or something. But it changed immensely. And again, there was no plan. Somebody just said, okay, let's go put a billboard out there. it sounds interesting, it sounds fun. Hearing loss, we treat that great, but I don't even know who the brand is. So what good does it do to have a message?
All righty. So got 5 more. We'll kind of walk through pretty quickly here. My guess is many of you have heard this either from those who are supporting your business or maybe even your own of, well, we need a few more months. Let's give it a little bit of time. Yeah, the leads are a little slow coming in, but some of the magazine drops or some of the digital campaigns, you really haven't hit full flush yet. To Darren's point, you don't want to be jumping all around, but if you don't have goals, you don't have an understanding of what to expect in a ramp up. We see this all too often with marketing. People just, base it on the qualitative, and they just wait and just say, well, we'll change it for next year. There's a point where if you understand what your ramp up is, and if you're not hitting it, then you're just wasting money continuing to dump into it. And a lot of it's just people aren't either committed or they're not sure what to do next as far as a scenario plan. This is another one of my favorites. I've lived this one in a larger company where sales reps just said, hey, our competitors are on the hockey boards at this NHL team or this minor league team. And we need to do that. We need to be on the same boards that they are. And I'm like, okay, do you have season tickets? No. Would you ever take your customers? No. So who are you expecting to be the audience? It's one thing to do things like this in a sports environment, especially in a very male-dominated contractor kind of industry. But if you're not backing it up, it's just wasted, brand awareness. Now, I've seen it and done it where someone's got season tickets, they're taking customers, they've got a plan all through the year, and it reinforces that customer experience and the sales entertainment. But just to throw your name on a billboard because a competitor or a hockey board or an outfield sign on a baseball field, you name it, if you're not engaged in a full campaign, honestly, it's wasted money. Another one is that old, hey, let's give this another try. And this is actually a airplane banner, which we see sometimes, obviously, at the beaches. But the thing that I want to stress here is usually it's not your internal team, but I'm sure some of you have run a campaign with an agency. It could be any number of things, and you didn't get what you were expecting, and then all of a sudden they come back, well, let's run it for another month, and tell you what, I'll cut your price in half or some type of discount. Are you expecting to get any different results from that than you did the first time? What's the reason besides they're offering you a discount why it should be different? Now, if they're doing something they hadn't done before, if they're changing the target audience, if they're changing, the time, the call to action, whatever, that's one thing. But if they're just coming in and giving you, well, let's do a discount to do it again. Back to Darren's comment early on, they're just trying to sell something, and more than likely they've got time available they haven't sold. So they're just trying to, get anything to fill that space. Another one, this is an example of fantastic ideas, good execution, but not understanding the market. So this was a niche coffee product that all of a sudden did a sample program on Facebook. Problem is, this went out everywhere in Facebook, beyond their distribution area, and within the matter of a day, they couldn't fulfill all the leads they had. And it was mostly the idea of free samples. It wasn't necessarily, now I'm sure they got a lot of good business from this, but by not thinking about their target audience, looking at where they need to start, they ended up not getting a chance to reach out to customers they wanted to reach out because they were giving away, free coffee to everyone, out there, whether they were truly interested or not.
This is a great example also, Trip. You and I have talked about this. Groupon was notorious for doing this. And they would blast retailers with volume And they never really told them, hey, you need to limit it to 1,000 or 500 or whatever the offer was. Again, back to a plan. And so, again, we live in marketing. That's the world we live in. But I just am not a fan of most media sales organizations because their job is to sell something. And so what happens in a situation like this, or Groupon and all these sorts of things, is that expectations may or may not get met. You're going to have people frustrated in the case where Tripp's talking about. You can do just as much damage to a brand as you can help a brand because you have not thought about or made it very clear that, we're giving out 500 samples and set that base and be ready for what's going to happen when people ask for more. How do you handle that? How do you think past the next step? What's that chessboard look like so you're thinking down the road?
Yep. And so the last one is no call to action or contact. Now this looks like a great ad. Now the thing I didn't give you the background is this is in a movie theater. All right. And I've done at Oldcastle, we did some movie theater advertising with call to action, and we learned some things and we pretty much got out of it. But in this case, this is before the movie theater starts. If you write down the doctor's name, maybe, but there's no website, there's no, phone number, there's nothing. And this is while you're getting your popcorn before the ad. So, again, if you don't have a call to action, what are you getting out of your money? So this kind of goes back to similar to the billboard, to lack of strong execution. With that, Darren kind of hit the biggest fail of all.
Let's go to the next page. And so Tripp just started it, marketing measurement against investment. Again, what's the number one thing we all use as our barometer? Revenue. Doesn't mean it's not right. It doesn't matter who the company is. But I'll never forget a Coca-Cola client saying, revenue hides all evils. And what does that mean? Well, there are two keys to truly understanding what's going on. A is look at the revenue in an overlay with your marketing. That's number one. So as you're tracking revenue, you're tracking it against your marketing execution. What's that marketing roadmap against your revenue? And then also understand that revenue against the sales funnel and the marketing roadmap. So in a simple example, we just did a report for a client yesterday, and we are adding 2 new data points to it. What is their web volume versus lead conversion? And what is their web volume versus their email open rate and click-through rate to leads? Why would we do that? Well, what's really interesting is they have cut their web traffic over the last 3 months back about 25%. Their web traffic to conversion rate has almost doubled. Now, what does that mean? Back to planning and execution. They used to get 10 requests per month for an email to, for a specific product. Now, instead of 10, they may say, you know what, we're only going to do 6. And so, again, it is, if I have one massive soapbox, it is quantity over quality. I mean, quality over quantity. Sorry, that was a Freudian slip. Quality over quantity. And that is a great example of a measurement that we identified a new metric. We've been looking at the metric. We've changed the process, reducing the number of actual emails. one of the things that showed up, which made that happen, was we had at one point about 4 months ago, which was the big red light, an unsubscribe rate of almost 8,000 names. So you take those things and you say, okay, yeah, our revenue looked great that month, but if we don't look at what's going on under the hood, we could be in trouble 3 months later. And we nipped that in the bud. So that's a revenue versus or in alignment with marketing conversation. The other one, number 2 of the 2 measurements for ROI, is marketing specific. And I think this might lead to the question about the virtual trade shows. I want to find out more about what that question is first. But the challenge for everybody, especially in mid-market, is, we talked about this a little bit, everyone is a specialist. You have an SEO specialist, an SEM specialist, an email specialist. And because of all these specialties, most of them aren't talking to each other. So how do you understand which one is contributing the best to what you're doing? And again, so there's marketing attribution and marketing mix. Too much to go into today. Welcome to have the discussion with anybody. But also, how are you doing against benchmarks for each one of those? Jesse's looking at social. I want to find out more about the question with the virtual trade show, or even pay-per-click. There are absolute benchmarks that are published from Gartner, from Salesforce, from HubSpot, etc., that you can look and say, okay, how am I doing against this benchmark? Not against what the agency said, not against what I want, but against a benchmark. I can want to make 10% of my portfolio, but again, that's what I want to do. What should I do based on what my plan is? So again, to summarize marketing ROI and investment, combine the revenue with what is it doing in alignment with your marketing plan and campaigns. Go down a level and look at what the funnel looks like, especially because you could have seasonality and those sorts of things. That's one set of metrics. Put those together and look for correlations in how those two are influencing each other. And then under the hood, you go and say, okay, well, what of these different marketing mix tactics is performing better or worse than others? And those two things, because each one of those things cost money and time. And so what is the definition of ROI, right? It's return on investment. So time and money are the two components you need to look at. And then you can go forward and say, okay, this one made a lot of sense, this one didn't, and go from there.
All right, Darren, so the kind of the 2 questions on the virtual trade show, this is probably a good time to do it, is what are some best practices, knowing that virtual trade shows are a must for next year. And then the second one, I think from Catherine, was, thoughts around digital content within virtual trade shows such that you don't create a lot of content that no one looks at. So I'll hit a couple, and then Darren, I'll let you add in. I think the first thing, if you're going to be involved in some major shows, and I know, Christian, you brought this up, is you've got a plan. I mean, this is not a 3-week get ready type exercise. You've got to look at, there's different ways to go out there. I mean, everything from, virtual reality type programs, et cetera, that I've seen people use, but, develop your plan about what you want to create. The second thing is, look at segmenting your audience. There's 2 different areas. One is your existing customers. Are there certain things that you want to get across to your existing customer base? And I would advocate, if that's an area of focus, you want to have special times set up for your existing customers, right? And that can be anything from sharing content, that can be Q&A type opportunities with maybe your leadership. And I've seen it in larger companies. This may or may not make sense, but even special events. I mean, I've seen, musicians that have done a half-hour kind of event in the evening, and then they're allowed Q&A and things like that. But I've seen those type of things done. And then you get into, attracting new customers, right? So that's a completely different. I think that's where not only do you have a need for new content, but you also need to have a plan of how you're going to reach out in advance. If you're just expecting the trade show, people to be there, you're missing opportunities. You've got to be reaching out via email, social, and other means, from the 1 month out to gain and garner that person's attention that they're going to bring in, and you're going to bring them value. So with that, Darren, I'll let you add on and give other ideas.
I would start by asking, first question is, are you asking as an attendee, or are you asking as being a sponsor that is essentially has a virtual booth in that trade show? That would be the first question. I've got a very close friend who has a very large, it's called France Media, and they do a ton of trade shows. And I bust this guy's chops constantly because, but the point is, Mary Kay, what this is essentially trade show. This is right. What this is, not because we're on this, but this is the right way. So first, are they asking you to participate, or are they asking you to sponsor? First question. And if they are, now the next question would be, what are they doing to help the sponsors get engagement from the attendees? Again, these are media companies. Their job is to get you to participate. So once you know that, so they're going to say, okay, we're inviting 1,000 people. This is the topic. We would like you to be a sponsor. What are those objective, factual benchmarks that they're going to set that give you a basis by which to say, I think I should try it?
So Darren, Catherine did say she's thinking of this from asking to be a sponsor.
Okay, perfect.
And Christian is the same.
Okay, sorry, my
or an exhibitor.
All right, so that's what I kind of figured. So then let's go to what's the cost as a sponsor, and what are they going to give you? Now, this is some coaching. Right now, they need people that are good. They need good content because, again, the thing about a trade show is it is bringing different groups together for a common purpose. So they want to sell you the being a sponsor. If you can't be on the talking heads, I wouldn't do it. I mean, personally. Now, there's a caveat there. Can you get an email list? Can you get other things in that are value add in addition to just being the participant in the trade show? What are the things that they're going to do for you as a sponsor post trade show? Again, this is done right. You guys have got, it's up front, it's coming, there's an event, it's posted afterwards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the blocking and tackling things I would ask first, and then reverse engineer and say, okay, let's say they want $5,000. They want 10 for a gold, they want 5 for a silver, et cetera. And they say, we are anticipating 1,000 people. And you're going to say, well, how many is this virtual trade show a replacement to what would have been an in-person experiential trade show last year? Most of them are. Well, how many people came to that experiential trade show last year? 1,000. Okay. And so now this is back to measurement and math. Now you go and you say, okay, part of the cost for this, you're going to go big, $10,000. I'm going to get my brand in front of a lot of people. Is it the right audience? And how many people can I engage to come in and be leads? If you put the whole $10,000 against lead gen, you're already going to hate your ROI. I can promise you right now, it will not work. Okay. A trade show is a combination of brand and lead gen. So
it's funny. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jess.
It's funny you said the $10,000 thing. Yesterday, I seen an Uber go by the house, but it had one of those little like sign things on it. And I was like, that's a good idea. So I was like, wonder what that costs. So it's called Uber Ooh or Who or something.
Yeah.
So I looked it up. It's $10,000 a month to be on that thing.
Yep.
So I was thinking, yeah, if we had the business, it would work, but I wasn't my budget.
Well, and so that's where, again, so let's just finish this trade show conversation. And again, everything is about reverse engineering. We built a platform that just helps you do this. But at the end of the day, take the budget. This is going to touch planning, measurement, ROI, and should I do it? The thing that makes people uncomfortable is not the idea that I want to do something. We all are willing to try things. If in your world, you know what to expect when you plant a beautiful hydrangea, or you do a yard, or you change you have an expectation, and because of that expectation, you go in with confidence, talking to your customers. You're in a world, in our world in marketing, where that confidence is not there, and it's not going to get there unless you have the questions that you can ask, like the ones we just fed, and you just literally go, hey, look, okay, what do I get for this? How am I going to succeed with this? And you literally and you make it a math equation, and you say, based on this math equation, and me following through at 90% of what I need to do to make it successful, I feel like I should give it a test, not a try, a test. And then from that test, you decide if you want to do others. But like I said, just to repeat myself, did they do it as an experiential last year? How successful was it? What was the attendee volume? How are they going to bring that forward this year? The reality of virtual trade shows, whether they want to admit it or not, is that we all have the ability to be doing multiple things. So that engagement part of what they're going to do is really key. If they say they're going to do 2-hour, breakouts, walk away. No one's going to spend 2 hours sitting at their desk watching a video. Ain't going to happen. Not in this day in the world. So what is the structure that they're going to use to engage the attendees to make your sponsorship drive the most? And then once you get those things, now you can make an objective decision. If you want to, again, love doing it. If you just wanted to say, hey, Trip, Darren, this is one we would like to look at, absolutely no problem. It's fun, and it doesn't take any time. Send us an email. Happy to look at it and just give you advice. Hope that's helpful.
And the one thing I'd add, and I want to make sure we answered both Catherine and Christian's questions, but Darren hit it. Right now, the trade show industry is in a point of weakness. And when that happens, you can negotiate. You can get things that you want. You can also, even I did this once at Bellegarde with the Philly Flower Show. We asked for a couple-year contract. And all of a sudden you get even better deals that help your ROI if it makes sense to your strategy. So understand right now they're in need. So you do have some leverage if it works to what your plan you're trying to accomplish, as Darren said. So
did that answer the questions, guys? I'm sorry. I hope that was helpful.
All right, Darren, why don't you go ahead and hit this one, and then I'll wrap it up.
We touched on a lot of it just through these conversations. Smarts and learning is more important than trying. And what I mean by that is you can make a good decision and be wrong. We all do it. but you can also make a bad decision and be right. The thing that you need to be is knowledge gaining, and hopefully that's what these meetings are doing. So that if nothing, we do nothing but come away and either stop you from making a decision that was uncomfortable or help you make a better decision that is comfortable, that's a win. Again, being in this world, being a cynic, I think maybe that's why we come at it from a different perspective. There's a whole lot of noise out there. And it's not just about price. It's not all about, what these people are trying to throw at you. Everyone's got some new WYSIWYG that they're going to say is going to sell you lots of or get you lots of customers. It's still good old-fashioned elbow grease and time. And so.
Yeah, and with that, this last one it's about your customers. I mean, to that point, it's understanding, and if all the whatchamacallits and the WYSIWYGs that get thrown out, the shiny new objects, if they're not addressing your customers' priorities and where your audience really is, you're just throwing money, in a big old top of the funnel, and it's just going to, work its way quickly down to the bottom of the drain. So, think about the customer more than anything, and think about how, content, your social media, Jesse, to your earlier comment, think about customer first, all right, and how it helps them. So with that, hopefully, from today, the idea of marketing roadmaps, you're thinking about your destination. You're not thinking about a calendar. The traps that we kind of threw out there are just things to have as that learning, as Darren said, to avoid. And then, thinking about the trends next year, whether it's the virtual trade shows and, what does it mean to you? Where can you get the most bang for your buck in that environment?
Thank y'all for doing this. This is really great information. And I think particularly talking about the virtual trade show component is, that's something that I know with our organization is trying to get our head around as well. And as far as attendees too, I mean, what are they going to get out of it? So thank you for that. Yeah. So your email address is here, Trip. I'm sure you would invite anyone that was on this call or on previous calls or viewing it later to get in touch with you with questions or to talk to them about how you could help them.
We're always welcome to have just a general call. And as Darren said, we might be able to help, or it may just be some ideas or point you in a different direction. So, we're also out on LinkedIn, and we have our newsletter. I know some of you are getting, and you can sign up for that. It's a monthly newsletter as well. And we're about helping people, and we love this organization. And we hope to do some things again next year if there's an interest, Mary Kay. So,
sure, certainly. And again, I want to thank all of you for joining us, and thank you for Proven Winners for sponsoring all 6 of our Lunch and Learns this year.
Welcome back to the research fields here at Spring Meadow Nursery. Once again, I'm Dr. Judson LeCompte, and we are going over our 4 new introductions of Hydrangea paniculata. Next up, we've got Quickfire Fab. Going on with the name of Quickfire, this is one of the first of our Hydrangea paniculatas to come into flower. It's going to start out with a nice creamy color, and as we age into summer, we're going to start seeing watermelon pink come up from the bottom of the inflorescence, and then it works its way all the way to the top. As we get closer into fall, this whole inflorescence is going to be a lovely pink. Another fun fact about this one, the flowers are what we call cruciform. They're shaped like a cross or like a crucifix. So you can always spot it out because it's got these cruciform flowers. Again, it's got really upright habit, strong stems that are not going to flop over with the large inflorescence. It is really going to give you full season color from spring to fall. Quickfire Fab is going to come into flower earlier than the original Quickfire, and it even has a denser mop head flower, sure to give you more impact in the garden. For our growers, this is a great opportunity for you to get early season color into the garden centers. We know the garden centers are busy early in the season, and we want to have a paniculata available for our customers to purchase. Generally with hydrangea paniculatas, we say that they can be grown in zones 3 to 8. If you're on those extremes, there's a few things you can do to protect your plant. If you're in that zone 3 location, plant it in a little bit of a protected area, even cover its roots with a little bit of mulch, so the base of the plant with some mulch. That's going to help it go through the winter. If you're growing in zone 8, 7, and 8, I'm from there, it's hot, y'all. This plant will do well. Just put it in the shade. Put it on the east side of your house or on the north side of your house, just so that it is protected from that afternoon sun. We're excited to have Quickfire Fab as another installment into the Quickfire family. Make sure to look for it early in the season.
That was
It's
beautiful.
nice. Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you all for being here. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day and wonderful Thanksgiving.
You as well.
Thanks you so much. Have a great holiday,
Thanks.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.